Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Viewers, today's video is again an update on Afghanistan, but mainly it will be focusing on the strategic landscape that's being shaped by international community, the regional countries, and the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. And definitely, we'll also talk about India, how they are looking at the situation and probably trying to find something within the developing situation. So this video we have divided into four parts. In part one, I'll basically talk of current situation and what could have been the so-called coalition's plan that we see after some resistance in Panjsher. Number two, how is IEA trying to make a transition government, and are they successful or they have some challenges? Number three, what is happening in the regional countries surrounding Afghanistan? And the end we'll discuss what is Chankiya thinking and how they are viewing the situation and how frustrated they are, and do they have any options left. Now I think most important part of the video is the first and the last. As far as coalition's plan is concerned, of course, US drawdown was announced last year, and then we had this Afghan peace deal in Doha. This was followed by basically Biden taking on the cue from Trump's policy, and they are apparently implementing it. The thing which actually surprised everybody strategically was the way Kabul and most of the capitals collapsed. I think this was not in anybody's calculation. I think the design was that there should be resistance in some of the provincial capitals. They expected probably that ANSDF and Afghan National Army would do that. And then they were banking on 5 or 6, I think, pivotal provinces or regions. One is, of course, the north, where we had Dostam, in the regions bordering Uzbekistan. Then we have the Panjsher Valley, or the north area bounding north of Kabul, and then having border with Tajikistan, Hazaras, and definitely Herat, where Ismail Khan was expected to give a good fight. And then was the Kabul fortress. In that case, they expected a lot of resistance and probably grinding halt to Taliban's advance, massive casualties, thousands of people killed on the streets, and there was a ready-made case for sanctioning Taliban, and probably international community would have jumped in again. But that did not happen. Why I am in concluding it, that how this is how probably it was strategized, is the resistance in Panjsher Valley. It's a very small valley. It's not even a formal province. And Amrullah Saleh ran away from Kabul to Panjsher. And then you have Ahmad Shah Massoud's son, who is trying to show some resistance. And resistance is natural, in diverse communities and ethnicities. This is very much possible. And if Taliban or the Islamic Emirates today holds, I would say 98% of Afghanistan, and there is resistance from 2% of the area, I think one should give due credit to the IEA that it happened without any bloodshed. But the way this resistance is being projected, that basically forces me to conclude that probably the design was, as I have described in the initial part of the discussion, to have a lot of bloodshed. Today we find Jalda Hakim tweeting, that I can see Amrullah Saleh playing volleyball and they're going to give a tough time, and she's probably heard that there have been casualties and there was an ambush against the IEA. A very small area. Panjsher Valley, if you see on the map, is not even visible. But it's being projected by the Western media, and then I think entire Indian media today is focused that probably, this is it, and they have found their Napoleon, and there are going to be a lot of resistance. So, what does Jalda Hakim, BBC, or Indian media want? Do they want really bloodshed? Do they want the streets and valleys to be filled with blood? And then they will be happy. So, if they are jumping on this small resistance so much, and they are basically projecting it as something, as if they have found that great leader. Imagine if the resistance was coming from Panjsher Valley. It was coming from Dostan factions closer to Uzbekistan, the Afghanistan area bordering Uzbekistan, like Kunduz and these areas. Ismail Khan fighting in Herat. Just imagine. And then Kabul fortress fighting. How would have Western media and Indian media projected it? So I leave it there, that I think their design was defeated, and I think it's blessing of Almighty Allah, and probably God gave that sense to the Taliban as well as the I would say different ethnicities and groups, that enough is enough and we should not shed blood. We are all Afghans and let's move for peace. So that is very important to be noted, that the design has been defeated. Maybe there is a divine intervention here. Then we come to how Islamic Emirate has moved so far as political dispensation is concerned. I think they have been able to talk. Today we heard there is a jirga taking place in Kabul, in which I think they will have basically the lower house in the assembly, the elders gathered, and probably there is going to be a discourse and communication. They have been able to, I think, talk to Hamid Karzai, they have talked to Abdullah. Ismail Khan is on board, and by and large, even Hazaras. A good thing is Pakistan has helped them because the actual Northern Alliance leaders were here, like Ahmad Shah Massoud's younger brother was here, who was basically heading the Ahmad Shah Massoud Foundation, and he also mentioned that probably fighting will not be a good option for the Panjsher Valley and we should negotiate. I also hope that sense prevails and this young Ahmad Massoud looks at the overall situation and his options, and he joins like Ismail Khan with the Islamic Emirates to work for peace and prosperity in Afghanistan. So far they have done well. Their challenges are going to be in the economic sector, to run the state. Basically they have to pay the government employees, they have to pay the whatever military they will have, they have to do trade, and they will be needing foreign exchange reserves, which I have heard, and the reports are there that these have been I think frozen by the Americans, the dollars, the foreign exchange reserve, which basically belong to the Afghan government. So definitely the regional countries including Pakistan, Iran, Central Asian Republics, Russian Federation and China have to come in a big way to make sure that Afghanistan is sustained economically. Indians are betting a lot on this, that there is going to be economic collapse and how they are going to do that. Then of course in the information domain there will be media war, media onslaught. It appears that probably entire media is focused on showing something in Afghanistan to portray Taliban as barbarians and uncouth people. Whereas I think IA's information management has been, I would say, benign and successful so far. So they've been able to communicate to international community that no, it's not like that. We'll like to live with the international community. As far as the region is concerned, I think Iran has played very well. Now we are having some signals coming from Middle East probably that they are going to also chip in. Already the OIC had their emergency meeting in Jeddah, and the announcement was that they want to have a peaceful united Afghanistan, which is a very good omen. China, Russian Federation are again looking at how situation evolves, but I am sure they will get engaged for a unified and prosperous Afghanistan. Finally, we come to India. As far as their opinion makers, defense analysts, so-called defense analysts, which includes 3 and 4 star generals and some idiots like Gaurav Arya and Arnab Goswami, who think they are I don't know which tactics he has studied or which strategy he has studied. He thinks that if he can talk, in a louder fashion, in a style, he can impress people. Imagine he recommending to the Indian government that one, they should, simply give money to the Northern Alliance, and he really demeaned the Afghans. That send them $100 million every month, tell them, you will get this in your bank accounts, and just fight it. And we are going to discard T-72 tanks and we can supply them with tanks. Somebody should ask him, have you studied the terrain of Panjsher Valley, Afghanistan? Have you looked at the geography of Afghanistan? And do you know that basically you have to pass through Pakistan, at least if you are supplying it with armor. And there are no routes, through Pakistan which lead to Panjsher Valley. And in case you want to fly it, put an aircraft, one or two odd tanks on C-17 in case. Where are they going to land? And they're going to, let's say, use the Pakistan airspace. So you want to send Abhinandans. So such like stupid, suggestions, mainly to incite violence. And they think probably they are going to make a lot of halla gulla on the media, and then they're going to undermine the Taliban. Most of the, I think, seasoned bureaucrats and the diplomats are really feeling that India has lost in a big way, and it was strategic win for Pakistan, and even future doesn't hold good for India. Of course, there was some hypocrisy. On one side, you are trying to incite, Panjsheris to fight the Taliban, and this was picked up by the Islamic Emirates social media teams, and they were really annoyed that this is how these, I will not use this word, but something related to cow, that these guys are looking at Afghans. And they even reminded the Indians and Major Gaurav Arya that if you want to look at history, then look at what Mahmud Ghaznavi and Ghori did to India. So I think that should suffice for Gaurav Arya and his company. There is also, a paralysis in the Indian political military leadership and the intelligence community. The James Bond, which Mr. Doval, who thought, he had the high wisdom, and he was mainly driving the Indian policy in Afghanistan, has been proven to be wrong. His entire, assessment, strategic assessment, intelligence input to Modi, I think it was just bullshit. And India, I think, suffered a lot because of Ajit Doval and all those idiots which are sitting in South Block. Today or tomorrow, Modi's party is going to brief the other political parties on Afghan situation. I don't know what are they going to talk about it. That we have to finally run away from Afghanistan like rats, and then beg the Americans to provide safe passage to Indians. Another alarming thing that we found in the media discourse and the footage which has come from Kabul airport is the number of Indians working for NATO. I think it should be a matter of concern that about 150 were just evacuated in last week, and they were not Indians working for, let's say, India, but for NATO. So it's a matter of concern to look at it, that how they have penetrated, different organizations, and how the US-led coalition was giving space to the Indians. So what were they doing there? I'm sure. Then was, raw operators who were basically working from different consulates. Numbers are not known, but I still feel India has a lot of people to pick up. And 31st August is just approaching. So in India, we find, frustration. On one side, they agree that Pakistan is one big way in Afghanistan. On the other side, they say, no, we don't believe it. Basically, it was the internal fault lines, and the Afghan army collapsed too early. So there's a lot of confusion. And good thing is that Pakistan has done it in a style. It has also become the fulcrum or the pivot of entire airlift which is taking place. A lot of countries, European Union, have requested them for providing airspace, and even asked for air transportation by PIA, which was, I think, granted. That uh, Pakistan has helped the international community for evacuation on humanitarian grounds. What lies ahead? I think we should give time to Islamic Emirates and the discourse even within Pakistani media. I find it's unfortunate. Some of the so-called liberals and media mughals who think they are authority on Afghanistan, and if you ask them, about the map of Afghanistan, they'll not be able to even explain the geography, but they think they are experts. So there are two or three different themes being floated. One is on TTP and TTA, that they are the same guys, and despite clearance from Islamic Emirate, and this has become a big moot point for the liberals. What will happen? And TTP will increase the terror attacks and all that. The other is their love for human rights of the Afghan people. And these liberals, are so ruthless. They never talk about, human rights of Kashmiris in occupied Kashmir. They are worried about, uh, Afghan women and children. They are not worried about Kashmiri children and women. And they are also in cohorts with the Indian media. Like I've seen Hamid Mir trying to spin the story. Then we have Dr. Taki writing in the Wire magazine and blasting basically Pakistani intelligence and Pakistani state. Are these Pakistanis? It's so unfortunate. So I think it's time to enjoy whatever is happening and see the smoke coming out of South Bloc and their cohorts within Pakistan. That they are all designs as far as ethno-fascists were concerned, the PTM was concerned, Afrasiab Khatak, you had Faratullah Babar and this Saath group, headed by Hussain Haqqani and Dr. Taki. Then there are people in Canada, like Mr. Gora who runs Tag TV, and all the idiots in the Indian media, that their design has been defeated very badly. And I feel that there is a silver lining in the sky, and we should be looking at a united, prosperous Afghanistan who is at ease with itself and then, of course, its neighbors, and which is basically friendly to Pakistan. So with this assessment, I leave it here, and I expect some comments and suggestions. Last time there were comments. We are going to, I think, improve as far as the video quality and technology also, but it will take a while. But I thought I'll keep updating you. Thank you very much.